Well, guys, welcome to another Deck Tech. This is going to be the deck I played at a PPTQ recently. There's going to be a tournament report going up online on cardconfidants.com. So check that out. That will be separate from this. We're going to get right into this. There is one Sorin Grim Nemesis. WinCon. Really all this is a way to win the game through card advantage. Killing our opponent's creatures helps us stay alive. His ultimate is really not how we're going to win the game. We're normally going to be just grinding them out and then trying to make them lose the life with +1 is the most likely scenario. The ultimate can happen, but I've yet to ultimate him in any format. We have 2 Liliana of the Veil because this card is just really good. It's an edict and a way to pressure our opponent's hand. There will be some games and against a control deck specifically when this is most likely to come up, where plusing's not going to be that good, but generally, this card is going to be a card you want to plus every turn, unless you're on like a mulligan or your hand just all good cards, in which case you're fine not plussing her. Being a 3-mana removal spell, and your opponent will generally attack her too, so she'll be 3-mana edict, gain some life, which isn't terrible. And if she lives, she just can't take over a game on her own. 1 Bloodgift Demon. It's big. It dodges Lightning Bolt, Abrupt Decay, Kolaghan's Command, a lot of the big things. And flies. Flying is a big deal and is a Phyrexian Arena on a body, which is why we're playing this card. This deck's slower, so we can get to it quite easily. Blood Baron of Escopa, like when I played all those probably about a year ago in that Mardu deck, it's still good for the same reasons. It's really hard to kill, it has lifelink, and it's just going to help you win games. This card can actually just win games on its own, because a lot of opponents can't actually kill this card outside of like an edict effect. 1 Grey Merchant, because gaining life is important for this deck, and even if it only gains you 2 life, that 2 life can be a big deal. It has 4 toughness, so it will dodge a lot of removal spells and be able to block a lot of things, costing 3 black. And the draining can come up sometimes, as we do have Palace Siege in the deck. There are 3 Desecration Demons, 6/6 for flyer for 4. Sure, your opponent can sacrifice a creature on any combat to tap it, but you're fine with that generally, unless you're playing against like tokens or something where they just have abundance of creatures to sack and can kill you. But generally you'll be fine edicting your opponent and having a 6/6 flyer against other decks that can't sack creatures to it or can't kill it. It's just a big body that's going to kill them really fast. 1 Kalitas Trader of Get, the amazing card. 2 black, 3/4 lifelink. Whenever a non-token creature opponent controls would die, you exile instead. So that will get around things like Kitchen Finks. It'll get around graveyard combos. If you kill something that's been through the Breached in, like against Glorious Vengeance, then it will exile it and it won't come back. A lot of just really good synergies, considering we kill things with this deck quite a lot, and you can make an army of 52s, and you can just sack them to get them bigger, which is nice. And we do play an Empty Pit, so you can sack a lot of tokens to them should the need come to that. 1 Palace Siege. This is the 3 black. The cons mode can come up if you have a way to put Grey Merchant in your graveyard after playing it every turn. But generally you're going to be playing this and choosing Dragons, which is at your upkeep, each opponent loses 2 life and you gain 2 life. That's generally how this deck is probably going to win games if you play this on turn 5. This deck is really slow and grindy, and Palace Siege is just a way to grind them out over time, because that's what this deck wants to do anyway, and we can always apply pressure. This is one that is almost impossible to kill in game 1 for most decks. Jund having 1, maybe 2 Maelstrom Pulses is the exception, but once this is on the board, most decks cannot kill this card. 1 Phyrexian Arena. Like the Bloodgift Demon in the deck, it's simply in here to draw cards, except Bloodgift Demon can kill your opponent. This is just so we can draw cards. It's something cheap to play, get you a lot of value, and in this deck, drawing a extra card every turn, starting on turn 3, will be a big deal, because we want to play hand disruptive spells and removal spells and kill all our opponent's creatures and stabilize with some big threat. This can help us draw into those cards. Not good in every meta if you're playing against a bunch of burn and aggressive like affinity decks. You don't want this in your main deck, but where I am, this is pretty good. 1 Black Zenith. This is our Damnation in the deck. It's X black, put X -1/-1 counters on each creature and you shuffle back in. The shuffling it back in can matter a lot. You can draw it again later in the game. It gets around Persist. And if you can't kill everything, it will shrink the rest of what's alive, so it is slightly better language in that sense. Shrinking a Goyf's never bad. It can buy you a lot of turns. Against Affinity, this can be a 3-mana Wrath, because a lot of their things have 1 toughness. Playing it for 2 will kill pretty much everything, short of Arcbound Raptor with a lot of counters, and then even then it shrinks it. 1 Dark Petition, simply because it makes 3 mana when we search, once we have Spell Mastery. A lot of decks, we need a certain card to win the game. This was originally a Damnable Pact. We switched it out for this because this can search for exactly what we need. So being able to search for something like a Liliana or a Phyrexian and play it in the same turn can be a big deal. And sometimes you just play it, set up for next turn, and hope that's good enough. One, Consuming Vapors. This is just a card I really like. It's not necessary, it's not exceptional, but I really like it, so we're playing it. One, Sever the Bloodline, because killing creatures and then killing all the creatures with the same name can matter. The flashback has come up a couple times because this deck is really slow, so that can matter, especially if tokens is in your meta or elves or a deck that relies on having a bunch of creatures with the same name. 4, Lingering Souls, because this just buys you a ton of time and can win games on its own. It's mostly going to be making 4 1/1s and buying you a ton of time, but if you just play Lingering Souls into Lingering Souls, you can just win a game very fast with a bunch of 1/1 flyers. 4, Thoughtseize 4 Inquisition, because black and white, though good at killing things, can't kill everything, so sometimes you just want to stop it from hitting the board at all. 1, Empty the Pits is a way to win the game at instant speed. Say you're playing against Gyro's Vengeance or Elves or something that you need to be able to keep up a removal spell, but you still need to be able to play a threat to win the game. This can, if you're keeping up a removal spell and don't tap out, then you can play this, make a bunch of zombies because it has Delve, and untap and kill them, which has come up several times. 1, Murderous Cut, sort of Path to Exile without giving them a land. It does require a bit of fidgeting, as the Delve can come up, but being 1 to 5 mana as a removal spell is never bad. I've paid full retail for this when I could have delved and didn't want to. I've paid 1 for this. I've paid pretty much every possible mana cost for this card, and it's just really good. 1, Anguished Unmaking, because you can't, not everything in Modern is going to be killed by a creature removal spell. You can't always take something with a Thoughtseize or Inquisition, and this can just answer things. It can answer Planeswalkers, enchantments, artifacts, things that hit the board that we can't normally kill. Game 1, so that can be a big deal. Killing a Planeswalker is probably going to be the biggest thing if you're ever going to do that, killing a Liliana. That's why I play this card. The 3 life is a big deal, but at 3 mana getting to exile something is a great power to have, even with the downside. 2, Guest Verdicts, just a cheap 2 mana removal spell. Edicts get around a lot of things, and if you're playing against Affinity, Edicts are the best way to beat Arcman Ravager because they can't just sack it to the Arcman Ravager and get the benefit because they'll self-sacrifice creature. 1, Path to Exile. We didn't want too many of these. Giving our opponents land is going to give them a lot more tempo, and this deck thrives on slowing our opponent down and trying to slow the game down, so we don't want to be doing too much of that. But it can kill pretty much any creature in Modern. A few things are protection from it or dodge it, but for the most part, this is going to hit what we need to hit, so we're playing it because it's very good, but we don't want to play too many because ramping our opponent is the opposite of what we want to do. 1, Slaughter Pact, because we can play this to get back in the game. We have a lot of high cost casting cards, so the way to get back in the game is getting to the point where you can play 2 spells in a turn. And this help being 0 mana. You have to pay the 3 mana the following turn, but it lets you play 1 to 2 other spells, and then you can pay this, and then on your turn pay the mana, which is going to be very nice. And you can play it when you're tapped out, so your opponent, if they're playing around a removal spell, you finally tap out, you can still get them with a Slaughter Pact and be able to pay the mana on your turn. So pretty good. 1, Spellbomb, because there's a lot of graveyard decks in my meta. Gyro's Vengeance, Storm, Gifts Ungiven, the Abzan Company deck, just things that rely on the graveyard. So we're playing 1 in the main deck because it can still draw a card. It's slightly better than Relic because we do care about our graveyard. We have Lingering Souls, Murderous Cut, and Empty the Pits. This can just be 2 mana to draw a card when things are looking bad. Unreach the mana-based 1, Westerville Abbey. Once again, this deck's grindy. I have flipped this several times, and 1 game because I flipped it. It's still a way to make blockers. If losing the 1 life is still less than taking the damage, you can do that. But if you can get to the 9/7 on the other side, which is a flying lifelink, indestructible, haste, legendary creature named Ormondal, he can win a game pretty fast or keep you in a game for a really long time. 2, Blighted Fens. Just because it's a land and a removal spell, so in the late game when we don't need our lands, we can use it as a kill spell, and we still have plenty of lands, and it still helps us hit our land drops. 1, Vault, because lifelink, Death Touch, with Lingering Souls can be a big deal and help you get back in the game. A Seagate Wreckage to draw some more cards. 2, Ghost Quarter, as a way to kill things like Inkmoth and Blinkmoth Nexus, just a cheap, free way to interact with them, really. And then the other matchup is still a land against Tron. You're gonna want this in your main deck. If you're expecting a lot of Tron, you might want to play 3 to 4 and cut the Blighted Fens. Other than that, this card is just really good, and still a mana source. 4, Mosh Flats to help fetch and fix our mana. 1, Isolated Chapel and 4, Shambling Mints as other dual lands, because Isolated Chapel and are untapped. The Shambling Mints are the man lands, and they're really good, the lifelink. One of the biggest gifts of this deck is the ability to gain life. That's how we can survive through the pain of all our life. And a control deck in Modern If you're not Jund and you can't put a very fast clock on them, then you need a way to gain some life, or you will lose just because you're taking too long and your opponent can eventually maybe cobble a way to burn you out of the game, or just like do something like a collect company in one turn that gets in just enough damage to kill you. Being able to gain life is going to matter. One Godless Shrine to fetch with our Marsh Flats. We only won because we don't like paying life in this deck, which is, we're paying life with our Phyrexian Arenas, our Bloodgift Demons, all our other cards that we use to get card advantage. So we don't want to pay the life from our mana base. One Plains because it's base black. It's almost all black cards, as you can see in the main deck, and then you'll see in the sideboard. So only one Plains because we don't want more than one. 2 Orborgs to make our 7 colorless lands in the Plains, also a dual, a black mana, because getting that black land is important because you will get hands where you draw a bunch of colorless lands, and or a Plains, and Orborg will let you cast your spells. And then 4 Swamps, just because that's normally what we're going to be fetching. It's normally what we're going to want, just so we can cast our spells. And there's our main deck, and I'll see you for the sideboard. Hey guys, welcome to the sideboard. We'll just go through this really fast. Curse of Death's Hold. This is over Knight of Souls Betrayal because we're playing Lingering Souls, we're playing Westfell Abbey. We're playing a lot of things that make 1/1s and will help us win the game, so we're going to go with a slightly slower but the more effective version in Curse of Death's Hold. This can still just win a game like a Knight of Souls Betrayal can. But our opponent will be expecting a Knight of Souls Betrayal, so us not slamming it on turn 4 will generally give them a pause and make them think we don't have it, so they'll just keep playing things. Curse of Death's Hold will be slightly better in a lot of matchups, especially against opposing Lingering Souls decks, because we keep our Lingering Souls, but beat theirs, which is a big deal. 1 Leyline of the Void. This is for things like Gyro's Vengeance, Storm, things that just really rely on their graveyard. Because we really care about ours, so we don't want to play Rest in Peace. But Leyline will get the job done. 1 Phyrexian Arena, just for the Jund, Abzan, the slower, grindier, control-y matchups. We're going to want another copy. 1 Blind Obedience. This comes in against pretty much everything. It's just game 1 when our opponent has access to things like Abrupt Decay. We don't necessarily want this, but again, like Gyro's Vengeance, it stops Through the Breach, and Gyro's Vengeance from, Gyro's Vengeance from just killing you on the spot. It's good against Burn. It makes their hasters enter tapped. It lets you extort them for life. Against things like Abzan and Jund, the game's just going to go really long because you're going to grind, they're going to grind, you're going to grind slightly better, and this will help you do that. 1 Bitter Blossom, because against things like Gyro's Vengeance, Storm, this is just going to help you win the game quickly, because after turn 2, you need to be able to have removal spells sometimes, so you need to keep playing threats. This lets you have pressure, especially against Gyro's Vengeance. This lets you have pressure without having to tap out and let you hold up your removal spells every turn. 1 Infinite Obliteration. This is good against Merfolk. This is good against Elves. This is good against things that rely on a certain card that's a creature. You can't necessarily let it resolve, and this just stops that from happening. In a deck like Gyro's Vengeance, if you play Infinite Obliteration and name Borbrigmos, if they're the Borbrigmos version or Grizzlebrand, then they're going to have a real tough time winning that game. 1 Flame Tendrils is for the Elves Affinity style decks. The decks that are just going to swarm the board. You're going to want a cheap 3 mana way to kill them. This is the way. 4 Duress. This is for the Control, the Storm, things that you want more than 4 hand disruption, than the 2 hand disruption spells in the main deck in Inquisition and Thoughtseize. You're going to want Duress. It's the only 4 of them in the sideboard because in a lot of matchups you just bring 4 of these in and hope it's good enough. 1 Blessed Alliance. This card's amazing against Burn. It can gain 4 life, or it can make an opponent sacrifice an attacking creature. Good against things like Bogles that won't be playing around it. They'll be enchanting 2 creatures, or like Dryad Arbor, but Blessed Alliance will get around them if they're not attacking with both of them. Against Burn, if you ever get to escalate this, kill a creature and gain 4 life, then it's going to be amazing. We play 1 Disenchant just because there are a lot of artifacts and enchantments in Modern you need to kill. Knight of Souls Betrayal, Leyline of Sanctity, Cranial Plating. There's just a lot of cards that people will play randomly. Spellskite. This is a way to kill that and be able to continue with your game plan. 1 Smother, because it's just a cheap 2 mana removal spell against things like Affinity, Burn, Merfolk. You just need 1 more removal spell in your deck to try and survive to your Flame Tendrils, to your Black Zenith, to your Planeswalkers, to things that will win the game. This is a way to get there. And then 1 Surgical Extraction, because once again, you don't always get Leyline in your opening hand. And then against, like Burn, you want to board this card in just because if you can get rid of a Lightning Bolt or you can get rid of a Boros Charm, then you're going to save a lot more life in the long run just because you got rid of that 1 more burn spell. And you won't have to worry about it for the rest of the game, especially if it's a Boros Charm. So there's the sideboard. Quick, simple, easy, pretty straightforward. For more direct sideboard guide, then you can leave comments asking me questions about what I would bring this in against, and I will explain in the comments. You can also like the video. You can watch our other YouTube videos. You can find my articles on cardconfidants.com. You can find me on Twitter at PearsallsBlog. You can find co-host Lucky Number 2 on Twitter at Zane Pearsall. You can email us, pearsallsblog@yahoo.com. And that's really it. That's where you guys can find us. If you have questions, please feel free to contact us at those places. If you have criticisms, please feel free to tell us, and we'll try to improve. And we'll see you guys in the next video. Have a good day.